Even before they're born, identical twins intrigue us. Scientists still don't understand why a single fertilized egg splits in the womb, creating two genetically identical people. But despite how little we know about them, twins have a lot to reveal about us.
Twin studies give us new ways of understanding human behavioral phenomena. The biological and environmental components of disease, of intelligence, of personality. The list is limitless.
For more than 30 years, Dr. Nancy Siegel has been studying reunited twins.
Dr. Siegel?
Yes.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda. So nice to meet you.
Same here.
It's a passion that's personal. Nancy is a twin herself.
Nice to meet you.
Today, she's meeting Linda and Doreen, twins reunited after 35 years apart.
The reason why we want to study twins raised apart is you help us solve questions such as, is the behavior more influenced by nature? Is it influenced more by nurture? You share all your genes in common, and yet they're raised in totally different environments. If we see similarities between you, then we know that these kinds of traits are strongly influenced by the genes.
Nancy recruits me as her research assistant, and through a series of questions, we examine how Doreen and Linda are different and similar. Do you have any phobias?
Yeah, I have a fear of heights.
Scared to death of heights.
What is your favorite color?
Darker green.
Darker blues.
How often do you drink alcohol?
Very, very little. Never.
Do you have a favorite smell?
Florals.
Smells, perfumes.
The questions might seem elementary, but the answers have fascinated scientists for decades.
I have you at 62¼ inches,
Okay.
which is exactly what I got for your sister.
Despite being raised apart, separated twins are often closely aligned, suggesting genes play a major role in who we are.
Try it the other way and tell me how it feels. Right.
And Linda and Doreen are a perfect case study.
So you'd hold the nail with the left hand.
Living with her biological mother in a supportive household, Linda was encouraged to get an education, while Doreen was raised by her abductor and an alcoholic stepfather. By 17, she was pregnant. She never finished high school. Yet despite their different upbringings and not knowing each other for most of their lives, Linda and Doreen's bond was instant and intense.
When you met Linda for the first time, did she seem familiar?
It was almost like I knew what she was thinking.
More familiar than a best friend.
When I look at her or when I speak to her, I hear myself. Even though we're separate people, the more we spoke, the more it was like I knew her life. Like she had never been gone.
Scientist, neuroscientist, and I study the human brain. It's a complex and sometimes lethal machine.
If there's one thing Dr. Jim Fallon knows, it's the criminal mind.
In a blind experiment, colleagues sent me 70 MRI brain scans, and I had no idea who these brains belonged to. Some were normals, some were schizophrenics, and some were killers. I analyzed all of them, 5 of which I determined were the brains of psychopaths. And it turned out that indeed these 5 were the brains of serial killers.
The UC Irvine professor discovered in every killer's brain there's an undeniable pattern.
They all had their own fingerprint of brain damage, but they all had the same pattern underneath that, which is damage to this orbital cortex.
The orbital cortex at the forehead controls morality and compulsive behavior, and in every criminal, without fail, Fallon found an absence of any activity in that area.
It kind of cuts down on the probability that there's free will that we think there is.
Violent behavior, he concluded, is inherited.
The so-called warrior gene, monoamine oxidase A, that regulates, one of the ones that regulates serotonin, that this is passed from mother to son, which is one reason why there are many more males that are aggressive and violent and killers.
He couldn't have known it then, but a phone call from his mother would soon reveal the story he was telling was his own.
There was a book that was just published that your cousin gave me called Killed Strangely, and it's a story about your grandfather, great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Turns out, Fallon's family line is drenched in blood.
I looked into it, and it turns out I've been studying this and talking about it, and it's us.
An early ancestor, Thomas Cornell, for murdering his mother, was hanged in 1673. It was the first case of matricide in the colonies.
Since then, there were like 7 more murders in that line.
200 years later, his notorious cousin Lizzie Borden was accused, then controversially acquitted, of killing her father and stepmother with an axe. Dr. Fallon, along with 9 family members, had his brain scanned. His parents, wife, and grown children's brains were normal, but his looked hauntingly familiar. It was an exact replica of the serial killers he'd been studying.
You'll notice that all the red is where these areas are very active and hot with PET scan. But this area, you notice in this person, is turned off in the orbital cortex as compared to the other people. Well, that's me. So I've got, and it turns out that that pattern's the same exact one that I've been looking at in all these killers.
Further tests then showed he also had violent genes.
Now I had these 2 things, but I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a killer.
This neuroscientist admits he has strange interests, but he's hardly masquerading as a killer.
My choice of painting is bizarre clowns and really sort of disturbing images.
If Fallon's brain is that of a born killer, then how did he escape his own DNA?
And my whole family's always been just wonderful to me. I mean, just showered me with love.
Fallon was shocked to discover something as unscientific as love changed his fate.
The idea that a really, really nurturing environment can offset that floored me.
Jim Fallon thought he knew the criminal mind, but the more he learns, the more he realizes
The more wrong I'm getting, you know what I mean?
human behavior has little to do with science.
It's not just about not being bad to your kids, but to really going out of your way to, showering with love.
Newborn rhesus monkeys will grow up not in accordance with nature, but in the controlled atmosphere of a laboratory, where all the psychological influences of childhood can be duplicated. In a classic continuing study, infant monkeys are removed from the mother at birth and raised in semi-isolation. Other individuals can be seen and heard, but there is no physical contact, no interaction. Mother is a bit of plastic and shaggy cloth, a doll with no life of its own, but capable of nourishing the life of an infant. The monkey will come to depend upon this doll to satisfy basic necessities of life. Not only nourishment, but a deeper psychological need for comfort and security. In primate infants, there is an instinctive need to cling to another body, soft and warm. Food or security, which is motherhood's stronger appeal? Alongside a warm, familiar mother of cloth is a stark wire doll set up as nothing more than a feeding machine. young monkey is placed deliberately on a cloth mother which has no milk to nourish him, but fulfills some fundamental needs. This experiment revolves around one simple question. Will the infant monkey switch his affection to a wire mother which offers food and life itself? Only when forced by hunger does he loosen his grip and begin to yield to nature's most powerful internal drive. From the wire mother, he derives one thing: nourishment. No warmth, no comfort, no feeling of security. After feeding, he returns to spend up to 22 hours a day near the only mother he knows. From this inanimate object, the infant derives all the security and mother love he needs. He can, if also exposed early to other young, grow into a normal, well-adjusted adult.